All right, guys, today we have some very exciting PlayStation news to go over and talk about. Insomniac Games has officially come out and let us know that their upcoming PlayStation 5 exclusive Spider Man Miles Morales will in fact feature a 4K 60 FPS performance mode. And not only do I think the timing of this is absolutely perfect on their part and Sony's part, I think that they chose the perfect time to come out here and announce this and start talking more about frame rates. But they have completely shut down the narrative that, oh, the PlayStation 5 can only do 30 frames per second. All PlayStation 5 exclusives will be 30 frames per second. Because there are going to be some people who make it sound like this hasn't been a prevalent conversation, but I can assure you, at least on my channel, maybe just because it's the nature of my channel and what we talk about, I have seen it constantly. In fact, it's been thrown in my face over and over and over again to the point where, look, now you can't do it anymore because Sony's coming out here and they're doing exactly what, in my opinion, they needed to do at the right time. So we're going to take some time to talk about this. We're also going to talk about Sony actually pushing back against Microsoft recently. Not in a really aggressive way, but just kind of reaffirming their stance. Sony actually came out here and talked once again about their vision and their belief going into next generation and kind of reaffirming why they believe in generations and why they're opting to do PlayStation 5 exclusives. And they kind of pushed back against what Phil Spencer recently had to say. So that's going to make for some interesting conversation. If you could do me a favor, make sure you hit the like button to show your support and help the video out. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any future content, and hit the bell notification icon so you can be notified immediately anytime a new video goes live. But today on Twitter, randomly, is about 3 hours ago at the time of this recording, Insomniac Games posted a GIF of Spider Man Miles Morales. And it says here, swing through the city like never before on PS5 with an optional 4K 60 FPS performance mode. Now, obviously, they didn't really go into detail here, and I'm sure they're going to as we get closer to launch, but they did the most important thing, the two most important things in my opinion. The first was they talked about frame rate, right? For those of you who've been listening to me for a little while now, you will know that I have been saying that Sony absolutely needs to get out ahead of Microsoft and say something about frame rate, anything at all, because this is the conversation that is beginning to crop up and more people are having it. And of course, you know, a lot of these Xbox guys, they are running with the narrative that, oh, look at that. Digital Foundry said they suspect that these games we saw at the PlayStation 5 reveal event are all running at 30 frames per second. Therefore, we're not going to see 60 FPS exclusives, right? And of course, people ran with this. And anybody who's been following the channel, you'll know it just gets really annoying because, like, nothing has been confirmed by Sony. Like, absolutely nothing. In fact, other than Demon's Souls, up until this point, that was the only game that was confirmed to have a 60 FPS performance mode. And I think maybe Gran Turismo as well. I think that was kind of confirmed to be running at 60 FPS, and it's maybe going to try to hit 120 frames per second, which is great. But everything else, people are just like, oh, clearly the PlayStation 5 is not powerful enough, so don't expect 60 frames. And then you have Insomniac and Sony just coming out here and just stomping that, just completely erasing it. Not only are they talking frame rate, but the other thing that they're mentioning here that is just as important is they are saying 4K 60 FPS. This is critical as well because last time I checked, and this is where you're going to start to see people moving the goalposts as usual. Last time I checked, the number one thing people were saying going into this next generation is, bare minimum, I better see 4K 60 FPS, right? And that's the expectation. That has been the expectation. And granted, it's completely fair to expect that because this entire generation, the struggle has been, well, yeah, we can hit 4K resolutions, but only at 30 frames per second. So naturally, going into the next generation with a lot more horsepower under the hood, you're going to expect, well, 4K 60 now? Yeah, and so they're confirming this. And I guess the reason why I'm talking about it in this way is because even though this has been confirmed, and even though I know that the vast majority of us are very happy to hear this, the amount of people I see still complaining is almost unfathomable. And it just goes to show that some people are never going to be happy, or there's just going to be some people who are so against PlayStation and its fans and the fact that people are excited for what they're offering, they're always going to try to move the goalpost or downplay things. I've seen a lot of people coming out here saying, wow, optional, this should be the standard 4K 60 FPS. And we have to understand that, again, Insomniac didn't really explain fully what this means, right? Because a lot of people were thinking, well, this game maybe is going to run at 4K 30 frames per second with ray tracing and all of the other stuff and bells and whistles that they're going to have enabled. But in order for this game to run at 4K 60, now granted, they did not confirm or deny anything here. So what I'm saying from this point forward is pure speculation. But I think it's safe to say that if we're going to be playing this open world PlayStation 5 exclusive, right, alongside the PlayStation 5 when it launches, if you're going to be playing it at 4K 60 FPS, question number one, will it be native 4K? I would say yes. I would expect native 4K, if not something very, very, very close to it, to the point where it's nearly indistinguishable, right? I think that that's what you could expect. However, the second question is, well, at what cost? Can we expect to see ray tracing? And frankly, I would say no. Maybe this is why they're calling it a performance mode, because you're not going to get all of the extra graphical bells and whistles that you would get if you were playing it, say, 4K 30 frames per second. So that's the other thing here too, is if this is the performance mode, then what can we expect with the graphics mode? The graphics mode will most likely be, again, native 4K or very close to native 4K at 30 frames per second, but you will see ray tracing, you will see all of the extra effects, and once again, you will get all of those extra visual graphical bells and whistles, and the cost is going to have to be, you have to play it at 30 frames per second. Now, I'm going to also say this, the people who are expecting next-gen games to do native 4K 60 frames per second with all of the graphical bells and whistles, with like full ray tracing and everything else, I think you need to reevaluate your expectations, because not only are they completely unrealistic, but at that point, I'm going to highly suggest you move to PC, because you're going to need a really, really, really expensive gaming rig to make that happen. Okay, the fact that we're getting this option, in my opinion, is amazing, and it's exactly what I was hoping for. Again, for those of you who've been listening to what I've been saying here on the channel, not only have I been saying that Sony needs to come out here and talk frame rates and get out ahead of Microsoft, which they did just that. Microsoft Showcase is happening this Thursday, and we know that they're going to put a big emphasis on frame rate. Okay, this is something that Microsoft plans to flex. And I told you, like, Sony's not going to let them do that unchallenged. So here we go. Sony coming out with just a simple tweet, Insomniac Games, letting us know, yes, this game will be 60 FPS, okay? And it will have a 4K 60 FPS performance mode. Not only is this hinting that many of their other games will offer this, but the other thing I've been saying, and this is why I'm so happy to hear this, is I've always said that this should be the way it is. I don't believe there should be a mandate in place. Honestly speaking, I don't believe there should be a mandate in place where Sony says every game needs to be 60 FPS. I don't think that's fair to the developers, honestly. I think it should be up to the developer, the people who are making their own game, to decide what is best for their game. However, if there were to be any mandate, I think having a mandate of you need to at least offer a performance mode option, to where if people want to play it at a higher frame rate, granted the graphics might have to be lowered, either dramatically or maybe just slightly, you have to offer that. And so that to me is the perfect middle ground. Offer a performance mode, give us the option. And I feel like that's what should be there for almost every single, not just first party game, but every single AAA game. You know, if your game can't do 4K 60 FPS with all of the graphical bells and whistles, which is honestly completely understandable, then give us the option to choose whether we want the, robust graphics mode or the performance mode that, bumps up the frame rate, but still holds a high resolution. And I'm just really happy to see this, guys. So I had to take time to mention this because, again, not only is it perfect timing on Sony's part, but it just completely shuts down the narrative that a lot of people have been trying to write and trying to run with, and just make it seem like the PS5 is not going to be a 60 FPS machine. That is just out the window now. So we're going to end this video by talking a little bit about what Sony recently had to say, kind of reaffirming their stance on how they feel about console generations, reiterating that some experiences are only possible on PS5. Sony and Microsoft have vastly different views when it comes to console generations. Where Microsoft claims that cross-gen releases do not hamper innovation, Sony believes that some experiences are only possible on next-gen hardware, a stance that PlayStation marketing boss Eric Lempel reiterated during a recent interview with Jeff Keighley. As we've said many times with PlayStation 5, it's a brand new generation, and we believe in generations. So we want to evolve every part of the experience. Lempel argued that while it's possible to make cross-gen games, players on both platforms would have different experiences because of hardware differences. He used Insomniac Games' Ratchet & Clank: A Rift Apart as an example, stating that it specifically utilizes the PS5 features. So this is what he had to say. It isn't just about faster loading time. You take a great developer like Insomniac and they found a way to say, okay, look, here's a game that could only be made on PlayStation 5 on this generation using this technology. A lot of what you saw on the show, jumping through those different worlds instantly, can't be done in most cases. It needs new hardware. It needs new power. So that's something we're looking forward to. All these things come together. You combine that with 3D audio, the controller, ray tracing. I mean, these are great experiences that these developers know how to harness every piece of those features to really bring you a unique experience. And that really speaks to what next gen is for us. So there you go. I had to take time to highlight this quote because we've been talking a little bit recently about this interview with Eric Lempel. Not only, in my opinion, did he make it very clear that, yes, we believe in generations. Frankly, I think Sony's been doing a really good job making this clear with the build up to the PlayStation 5, but they're doing it, again, at the right time here where Jeff Keighley asked this question because, you know, he was saying this is kind of a controversial topic at the moment because of what Phil Spencer's been saying, and you can clearly see that both Sony and Microsoft have opposing viewpoints here. But at the end of the day, as I always tell you guys, the market will speak. Whatever the market likes better, they're going to gravitate towards, they're going to buy, and they're going to partake in. That's just the way it's always been. And for me personally, you know, I'm fully on board with Sony's vision here. And frankly, I think him using Ratchet & Clank as an example is the perfect example because while I'm sure there's other games in development or games that we saw that are also only possible on the PS5, Ratchet & Clank is the one that you can just take a quick look at and realize, oh yeah, that can't be done on any other hardware. You know, with the whole teleportation thing and, you know, going to different worlds literally instantaneously right in front of you. And I think that that's just a great example to use. And who would have thought that Ratchet & Clank would be the game to basically say, hey, you want to see what next gen looks like, what's possible, or get a little glimpse at what's possible with next gen technology? Take a look at the next Ratchet & Clank. So that is pretty cool, guys. This video has obviously focused heavily on Insomniac Games, but that's pretty much going to do it. Some very significant news here. At this point, I'm going to be very interested to see what you guys have to say. So leave your thoughts down in the comments below. How do you feel knowing that Insomniac Games is going to be implementing a 4K 60 FPS performance mode for Spider Man Miles Morales on the PS5? And let me know what you think about Eric Lempel's comments here, maybe kind of pushing back a little bit against what Phil Spencer had to say when it comes to exclusive games or generational exclusives. And again, leave the video a like if you found it informative or if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.